So welcome to the Node.js Community Package Maintenance Team meeting for the 11th of March, 2019. We'll follow the agenda that we have laid out in the issue. Does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share with the overall team? Okay, I guess we have no announcements this week. So let's move on to the issues that were tagged for the agenda. 169 is the first one, which is a first draft of testing guidelines. Yeah, open that up. Okay, that was submitted by Emily, who I don't think we have on the call today. No. I see there's been some comments back and forth. Is there any specific things people want to discuss on that one today?
I would like to add a tips because there is my comment and one for a response from Jarb that we are discussing on if it's worth adding a little description for acceptance tests.
So sorry, you dropped out just for a second there. Can you say the last sentence again?
I would like to add a little description for the difference between a type of test, like the unit test, integration test, and the acceptance test.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. My general thought too was that it'd be good if we could get more sort of concrete advice. It seems to say a fair amount about, that you should have tests, but I think if we can come up with some guidance or some suggestions that will make people's lives, like make it easier for package maintainers to add tests, that would be good, as well as any sort of standard things that could make reusing those tests. So for example, if external people can, if it's set up in a certain way, it may mean that we can run them more easily in Sigim, for example, or in other situations where people want to run a package's tests, having some consistencies might help. So getting some suggestions along that would be another thing to continue to work on.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, but it seems like we've got a reasonable discussion going on in GitHub, so we just need to continue to push it forward there, unless there's anything specifically we should sort of touch on or in the meeting today. Okay, so unless anybody has anything else to bring up on that one, let's move on to 164, which is add deprecate guidelines doc. Sorry, I'm just opening that.
It's another one.
So Joel, you were the one who opened that one, right? You want to give us a quick update on where that one stands? And I think you're on mute if you are talking.
Sorry. Yes.
There you go.
Hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. So let's see. Yeah, sorry, I was kind of partially out last week, so I just had time to update the other one. Which one was that? My open PR, and just make some updates to the comments for. Is that, sorry, I am.
Right. Yeah, so no, if there's no,
about?
it's this one, 164. Here, I'll paste the link in the chat. That one.
Right. Okay. It's opening for me. Okay, there. Yeah. So this it is actually a fairly simple one. I actually encounter this issue fairly regularly myself, and I opened this issue because I was looking at reducing the node module size because I'm working on containerization for our node.js solution. And the people who's developing our Kubernetes cloud and everything, they're complaining about the Docker images that we're generating for our Node app, which is about 400 to 500 meg, and when uncompressed is more than 1 gigabyte, because our apps pulls in more than 2,000 packages when you account for development. And even after we do a npm prune production, the node module is still anywhere from 200 to 300 megabytes. So we've been kind of doing a lot of looking right into the node module to see what kind of files we can trim down. And we've been seeing like files like test and a whole bunch of other files, like even coverage files and operating system file like ds store. And so that's why I opened this ticket. The basis of this is that we want to make people aware that, like, hey, you should consider making sure your npm ignore is up to date, or use the files to make sure that you don't publish any extra files. Of course, there are like opinions on both sides of the fence, where some believe that you should publish your tests and your documentation, and there are some who believe that. And then also if you use like another JavaScript dialect like TypeScript, or you use JSX, then there are two camps. One is they believe that you should publish everything, documentation, all the original source code, and test, and the other camps like you don't. And I think obviously we don't want to go into that, because that's an opinion thing that the package owner would be deciding. But we should still offer some kind of guideline on the basics, like making sure that some extra files should not be published, which I listed in the issue. So, and I was gonna write up a quick guideline that we can discuss, but I was partially out last week, so I didn't have time to write that. But I did update my other PR. I managed to get some time to update my other PR for deprecation guidelines for unmaintaining packages.
Right. Okay, because that's the next one on the list. So,
Okay.
So on this one, basically, it's you need. We might as well. We should defer to discussing it next time, or in GitHub once you've had a chance to take a look.
Okay.
Let's to push this forward. Okay, so the next one is add deprecate guidelines doc, which is number 150.
Right. So
you want to give us an update where we're on that one?
Sure.
Yeah.
So last time after our meeting, you mentioned about the context, and thank you very much. That was very helpful. Like that, because I was also kind of not sure where I was going with the doc, and asking that question, what's the context, really make a lot of clarification, and I was able to update the documentation to make much more sense. And so I've actually added created two sections. One is like for users who are consuming a package, another section for package owners. And then there's a comment that talk about like what is unmaintained packages and how we identify them. And if a user, and then you come upon a package that looks like it may be unmaintained, what you should do to identify, and once you are pretty sure that it's unmaintained, what things you can do. And then also the same thing for package owners. And I've got some review feedbacks, and I updated them. And one thing that's open, that's kind of still maybe needs a little bit more discussion is I have an item in there for the action that a user or package owner can take if they identify and maintain packages that I told them that they can reach out to the package maintenance group to file an issue for us to maybe take some actions. And what I have in mind with that is, I think the best we can do is actually just go ask NPM for ownership of the package, so then we can keep it. And in case someone comes around and say, hey, I can take over that, then we can transfer ownership to whoever is interested. That's as much as I think this group can do. And maybe for some more popular package that we can do a little more, but that is where it stands for now.
Right. I guess we could potentially keep a prioritized list of modules that need unmaintained modules that need help, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that seems like a good baseline. It's like, if you let us know, it's like, okay, and if it's a really popular one, we may try and think about harder. If it's one that's hardly used, we can just put it lower down on the list. But I mean, would it make sense to specifically capture somewhere in, maybe, I'm not sure if in that doc or somewhere else, but like if we're saying that they should contact us, we should document what we'll do when we get that issue. Is it basically take the issue and add it to a list somewhere or something like that?
Okay, yeah, good point. So I've kind of started something, and I mentioned that if you contact us, we will reach out to NPM and at least try to get ownership to the package. So that will allow us to, if someone in the future, if we have someone who says, I want to take over, then at least we can just immediately add.
Right, and I guess we could put it on a list without taking ownership, but taking ownership is another step that I guess prevents it from getting into the wrong hands or something like that. I think, yeah, let's sounds good. We can continue to discuss in GitHub, and we'll come to something. If that's where we end up, we should then go talk to NPM to see how receptive they'll be to that kind of request and figure out the rest of the things. And Glenn's asking in the chat. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So yeah, we as Joel has just said, actually, we would probably best served by starting a relationship with somebody in the NPM registry who we could actually engage with. And I've already engaged with somebody this week, and I have no idea if I get a response because it's at a very high level, and I've met them. But we may want to do this because we're helping. It's a symbiotic relationship. We're all in it together, and there are a lot of small things that we can clarify very quickly if we have somebody inside the organization. And that's it.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Who is it that you tried to reach out to?
The big guy.
the CEO?
The talky one, the one. Let's not say his name.
Okay.
The slide one. The one with the slide.
Okay. Yep.
Oh, hang on. Edgar's here. You need to get a chair, man. We're on.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's a good point. I think so. What do you want to do on the next step on that? Like, if you want to report back how that goes? And
I think so. So, that's the best. All I can get back from them is like, hey man, I'm really busy. Talk to this guy or something like that. I'm sorry, as you can see, this coffee shop is running out of rooms.
Right.
And it is just a coffee shop. Mm-hmm, yeah, legal purposes. This is
of course, just a coffee. Okay, got it. Maybe would it make sense to open an issue in our repo saying, find a contact in NPM. You could just comment that you've reached out to one person. If that goes well, great. If not, I can try and think of who I could ping as well. And just that way we won't forget about, and actually tag that with the agenda, because that's probably something we should make sure we remind ourselves to do.
Yeah.
So can I volunteer you to open that issue?
I will do that, sir.
Excellent. Okay. So Joel, that's a good update on where it's at. I guess everybody, if we can go in there and comment. I was out a bit end of last week, so I'm not up to date, but I'll make sure I do that this week, and if everybody else can. Any other things you want to sort of point out or get people's opinions on today?
No, that's it. Yeah, I'm a bit out of touch also, so I'm trying to catch up this whole morning here. So.
Yeah. Well, no, thanks for pushing that forward. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a question there on the issue. Maybe it needs a broader discussion. Was just wondering whether reaching out to this group is the correct step. I mean, sure, if there's a sort of big package where a lot of people depend on it, then possibly, yes, it has an impact on a big community. But then there's the very long tail of very small packages. And then there's the case that there's NPM may or may not be willing to do that. There's been some interesting happenings there right in the past where they were contacting people that they are going to lose the package, and then there's the name squatting problem. But whether reaching out to this group is the correct first step, right? Because if somebody is a user of that package, should we not encourage them to take ownership of maintaining that package if they depend on it, which is a general principle, right? If you're depending on open source and you're not happy with it, it's your job to become happy with it.
Right.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah, those are good points. I list some of those are actually on the guide. Sorry, are we talking about still talking about that? Yeah, I list some of those things you mentioned in the guidelines, like, hey, if you have a package that you use and you found some issue or want some enhancement, you know, here's what you can do. You can go to the repo, go to this npm, look at npm package, go through readme, look at the support tag in package.json, and if no one responds to you, then like consider becoming a maintainer yourself. And then if you know, all venues have failed, then look for alternatives. And finally, maybe reach out to us and let us know. Then we can see what we can do.
Yeah, I think refining it in the, so maybe Dominikas, you can take a look at what's there, add your comment, added.
It looks like there were updates since I last checked. So sorry, yeah, must have missed it.
The other thing that did come to mind is we may want to put a threshold, like, you know, if it gets more than X downloads, like, because if it gets one download a week or something or whatever, it's we do want to avoid being swamped with notifications, right? So thinking about what kind of threshold might make sense would be good too. But I'll look at it and suggest that in the issue too.
Okay. Yeah. Good point.
Any other comments, discussions on that one?
I would advise in trying to balance between number of downloads and number of dependents.
Sure.
You know, there might be some balance. There might be like correlation there, but not always.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So we should come up with, and actually this may be more of a general thing that we should kind of come up with our, when you look at a module, when is it one that we think we can reasonably get involved in because it's important, used enough, whatever. That same set of criteria is probably going to be needed in a whole bunch of places.
Right.
So, but yeah, let's use this one maybe to flesh some of that out, and then we can probably pull it out as a more generic threshold or something.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one is number 113, which is which problems Node.js OSS maintainers authors face today. Just gonna pull that one up. And I'm gonna see. Okay, so it sounds like our next step is to talk to the maintainers of the pilot packages and try and get their top issues. Matteo just chimed in saying he won't be able to do that for a few weeks though. So that was 2 weeks ago. So hopefully that means that now he's back. I know he was at like the diagnostic summit with where I was last week and he had other things going on. So maybe we'll just leave that and come back to it next time. I do see that Edgar has posted in the chat that there's an additional issue, number 161, which he'd like us to talk about. Do you want to just give us a framing for that one?
Yeah, no worries. I open up a ticket just to add a tool to validate. I know when you take a look at open source tools, there will be the tab that shows you how compliant they are with best practices. And so I put in a ticket to recommend building a tool to validate the recommendations that we're making. So we have a submission. The ticket has been addressed. So I just wanted to open it up to feedback on the issue to make any suggestions for tweaks or anything like that before we close the discussion on the validator. We are waiting for, last time I looked at it, the ticket for the support section still has a few comments that needed to be addressed. I haven't looked at it today, but I might wait to close the ticket for building the validator until we wrap up the discussion. So in the meantime, if we could get any reviews on the code that was written, excellent job. Yeah, just want to make sure that we catch whatever we can while we're still in the process of defining the standards.
Okay, so for support levels lands. Right, yeah, no, that's good. So that, yeah, you're right. There's still a few comments I have to get back to on the support levels. I'd addressed a few last week. There's a few new ones. And yeah, I'd agree that we should, probably because the validator may change until that goes, so we should wait until that. I guess, you know, since we're talking about that one, is everybody on the call at least comfortable with the content that's there, have concerns, issues that we should discuss? I'm hoping we can get, you know, the remaining comments addressed and then get that landed. And my plan would be then at the next meeting to kind of discuss how we should start to evangelize it if we're ready to do that. But I guess maybe now my call is like, if you have issues or thoughts, we can talk about them now, or, you know, make sure you start thinking about what we would do next.
Yep, and I'm not sure if the team, like to what extent we want to be building tools, like if we want to have like a fuller set of recommendations before we start getting into that. But, and I'm not sure if we've already produced any similar validating tools in this group yet. But if there's like a different direction we want to go in, you know, just let me know what we're thinking. Open that up.
I think this just came out of, you know, one of the initial comments was like, hey, if we're suggesting this, we should provide a tool to validate, which makes a lot of sense to me. And I could see the same thing happening if we come up with other guidance and something which helps validate that, or.
Is there, I'm not sure what tool is used. I forget what the name of the page is, but it shows when an open source module aligns with like the community guidelines. Is there like a way to add in our validators to do the same kind of thing? Let me pull one up.
Is that Greenkeeper or something?
Let's see. I'll pull up an example of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, Webpack. Oh, not npm GitHub. Insights. It's under the Insights tab under Community.
Of which?
Oh, sorry, Webpack. I can message out the link as well.
Okay. Yeah, if you can paste that into the chat, that'd be good.
You've got it.
Because yeah, I guess on that one, you know, what I kind of think is once we get it landed as a draft, then we probably want to do a push to get more input. Like, you know, basically say, we've got this draft, and try and make a, you know, a broadcast to all package owners saying, hey, is this something you think you could follow? And in parallel with that, we can think of other things like, you know, if this is a tool that might help encourage people to do that. I see. So this is Community Pro. So this is.
Yep, the community
Right.
profile.
I see. Okay. Right.
I just wonder if there's like an easy way to integrate our recommendations into the community profile to add to the checklist of recommendations as we come up with stuff.
Yeah, I don't know how that works on GitHub. And I guess the first thing would be to maybe figure out, like, because this looks like it's a GitHub thing, to figure out, well, does GitHub have ones which are specific to Node packages, or because we'd probably need to talk to somebody, or I don't know. We'd have to figure out how GitHub does that and how they drive those recommendations.
Yep,
I think, I don't know if the GitHub have any, like, we can talk to them, but this is more generic what they've done. I think to the context of GitHub, like maybe part of the outcome of this is creating a starter kit or a template of sorts for people creating packages that pre-include these things that we're talking about.
Right. One of the things we talked about was talking to NPM, so that when you did an NPM init, it would pre-populate it with the, maybe the lowest, or you get no support, right, is your first starting point, and then it's something that you'd see and change, right? I think that does fit back to the earlier comment that building, a contact with NPM would be a good idea, because we could start bouncing some of those ideas off as well. Okay, Edgar, anything else you wanted to have us talk about on that one?
No, that's it. Yep, and I'll follow up again once the other ticket is closed.
Sounds good. Okay, that is the end of what was on our agenda. Is there any other things people want to bring up or talk about this week?
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
I'm looking at regarding the support field and like support target. Is something like a Patreon or Patreon backed project, is that considered a support target? Or which one would that fall under?
Let me just look, because I think, let me reopen. I'm going to reopen the issue. Hold on, GitHub. Because I think that I had one in mind for that, but let me just find it.
While you're looking that up, I found the actual init package that NPM init does. It's already an open source package, so we can just do it.
We can PR into it. Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
excellent.
I put it in the chat.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm looking at the one here. Where is that going to be? I want to view the file. So this is the one that I think would cover that, Joel, but you can see it's under support-backing, and it's the third one on the list sponsored.
Okay.
Says a single maintainer actively maintains the package, but depends on sponsorship to be able to continue to maintain the package. Consider supporting the sponsorship through Patreon, etc.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I see. Cool. And do we want to offer any kind of a standard guideline on how the package owner can advertise that in addition to what's in the package.json? Typically maybe in just README. I know that most package ask for that. They usually just list like, hey, please support me on Patreon, and then put the link there. But I don't see that a common way of like everybody do it like slightly differently. Yeah.
Right, you mean for that specific case?
Yeah, or just whatever venue someone choose to use to get support.
Right.
Typically, they just put it on their README.
That is a good point, that recommending that go onto the README makes sense. Maybe what I'd suggest is, like, it'd be good to get an initial copy of this landed, that maybe you can PR that change in once we've got the first cut. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and maybe like there are probably like badges already exist for these kind of things, I guess, and I would think that's probably the most sensible way to go with this.
Right. Yeah, because on the you're on your README or web page or whatever, you can be more expressive and colorful and all that. So.
Okay. Cool.
I've seen a few culprit packages that had information like that in post-install scripts that made me very sad.
Right. Okay. That like popped them up or something?
Yeah, they just had like links. I believe the one I saw at least was like, hey, donate to a charity, not pay me money. But
right.
it
Okay.
was still kind of surprising.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Any other topics, conversation? No? Okay, so that's great. Thanks for everybody for taking the time, and we'll give you back a few minutes. And we'll continue to push things. I guess, Victor, I see your hands up. Was that something that we've already covered, or did I miss you?
It might be we've covered it, but I wish to ask again. People asking me what with my open source achievements, and they trying to focus when I'm showing them package maintenance team. They are trying to focus, and they are losing focus because of too much information, too much data. I'd like to show them some short, like Q&A section. The question I asked it in Jan 15, and if I can just show them short topic with what we are doing and what we are willing to do, what we are planning, it will be like much easier to explain what is happening here. And I think I'm not the only one. For all newcomers, it would be nice.
So Victor, like a living roadmap, like what we're trying to.
Yeah, what we're trying to achieve. I know that I know that package maintenance will be announced on Node Summit, and if I can show something, but I just can get focus on the meaningful topics, and people just like looking on issues and then asking them, so what you are planning to do? And I'm starting to explain this. It's too much time for me, and they are just like leaving and going, and that's it. And moreover, I'm trying to like express it, explain it in my local society, my local community, and it's hard for men to understand where we are going, and they just see that key packages, MQ210 and Express, and they're thinking, okay, there are a lot of other people, they will just like do everything good. That's it. That's all I wish to ask. If you can explain in short sentence, few like theses. So because it's not enough. Like if they are reading the first page of, it's hard to understand. And what is this going? What will roadmap? Yeah, something like this. I'm sorry.
So I'm wondering then if we should leverage, we have these issues, we have pull requests open. I'm wondering if in our GitHub repo to make things a little more organized for like a roadmap type ordeal, if we utilize the projects underneath the GitHub repo to kind of make this a little more organized to explain what exactly we're looking at for our roadmap as a working group to, guide guide others and show them, kind of give them more of a visualization of what's going on. Because yeah, we do have a lot of issues that are open and we try to make them as organized as possible. But sometimes it can get lost in the mess inside issues of what's happening. But maintaining that kind of like a Kanban board style of this is what's in progress, this is what's going on, that might organize it better for those looking in, not knowing what's going on in these meetings or being able to see in our live streams. I think that might help clarify a few things that he's looking for, or Victor's looking for.
That sounds like a good start.
It's a good suggestion. I would like to show. Yes, I will show them some of meetings, and maybe they will understand what's going on. It's just hard for people who are not in open source to like review everything in such complicated topic like this.
Maybe we could use the project tab of GitHub.
I think that's what Rick was suggesting.
Yep, that's just what I suggested.
So it sounds good to me. Do we have any volunteers to try and set that up?
I can start up. I can start up a project in there. A lot of the base practice stuff that we have right now can be exactly started up as a project underneath the repo, and then I can assign put all the issues that are a part of it in there. That should keep it a little bit more organized.
Yeah, that sounds good, because I mean we might even create some for things we'd like to get to, but don't have any work going on at this point. Like, you know, we could have one for like build prioritized list of modules that need help or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if we're not actually doing that work yet, it would show, you know, maybe the roadmap a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds nice. It's really good. We use it, and it's really visionable, and the vision, it's very easy to focus on it.
Okay, so if Rick sets that up, then we can all kind of look at it and add suggestions for, you know, new things, and hopefully, you know, hammer it into something that will help.
So may I ask which there are a lot of methods. It might be helpful if we'll use Kanban or Scrum, something like this, boards, or there is a like something traditional board. Will we discuss type of a board for that project tab?
When you say bot, like what do you mean? Like a bot that just,
you know, in project planning, when you are trying to get a vision on the future, you will choose some methodology on it, and there are some standard methodologies which you can use, and I wish to ask which one we will choose.
good question. Not sure which agile type methodology we can really use on this, since we're more of a volunteer, not just we don't run in agile sprints or anything like that. So this would be a volunteer based thing. I do know we can set up at least triggers for particular, like if we have an issue that's in progress and we have some triggers where it has 2 or more approvals, or if there's requests, like it can auto move the issues to the particular Kanban path or whatever, I forget the agile name for it, but we can set those particular triggers up inside of the project. But as far as like if we're thinking in an agile sense, it would be trickier since we don't do sprints, or we do meet every 2 weeks, but we're not effectively holding people like you didn't get this done, okay, you know.
Yeah.
We're not going to drill you because you don't do it, because we all have jobs on top of this.
The ones that sort of call out like things that are in progress versus on the backlog.
Yeah, exactly.
Might still be useful though, right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
My suggestion is that you build out a project board, and then we look at it next meeting. And like, so I'd say create an issue which is like, build out our project board / planning methodology. If you can take a first cut, we can then all look at it together in the next meeting and sort of say, okay, what would be useful in terms of columns and things like that.
I agree 100%. And this could be a very templated one to see what we want, because I am looking at them right now, and there are several different templates they offer, like basic, automated with reviews, stuff like that. So I'm going to kind of toy around with a few of them and see what they have, and then kind of get one ready for the next meeting, and then see what works out well for our use case.
Does that sound good, Victor?
Then thank you very much. And if you need some help, I can try.
Okay. Oh, I didn't see someone post in the chat. Oh yeah, that's exactly it. Okay, I agree with James on that.
Yeah, makes sense. If that's sort of what I was thinking, that it would probably have some sort of default structure, which is probably a good starting point anyway.
Yep.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, any other topics or I guess, Ahmad, I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot here. One of the things we wanted to get going was like guidance for helping companies enable their people to get involved. Do we have an issue open for that? I'm just...
I don't know if we have an issue in particular open about that. We did talk about how do we generally talk about company / enterprise engagement.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of topics within that we can talk about. I think back to the point that was just made in terms of we all got jobs and we're all busy and so on. Maybe there's an angle to that in terms of guidelines of how to message your commitment of time to contributing to packages and maintaining them, but also what information can you use and take back to your company and business so that you can ask for that time. Maybe those are interesting topics.
Yeah, I think that like you'd mentioned a few times to me how do you build the case to say we're using these modules, they're important to our business. I'm just thinking it'd be great to have something that's on our agenda so that we start to think about that one, talk about it, and figure out what's the next step in making some progress on that, because that seems pretty key for me.
I'll actually do two things. I've been actually building some tooling within my company and my team that can help potentially solve some questions about the data, but also I'll add an agenda topic to discuss this in our next meeting.
Okay.
And talk about that.
Okay. So identify packages used and we'll add agenda for next time. Sounds good. Thanks. Any other before we close out? Anything else?
Yeah. Can I add something?
Absolutely.
Yep. So I feel like there's a huge gap between the knowledge of someone who's starting up right now and someone who's already been working on open source. So, I mean, because there are a lot of members right now, especially when I joined in as well. So is there anything that can be done to bridge this gap between the two so everyone can participate as well?
I guess you have like examples of the challenges or what something you think that might help would be. I'm just drawing a bit of a blank in terms of.
One of the things that I know when I started recently and I hadn't been very involved actively, like in going to the meetings, maybe participating in other ways, but I had a lot of questions when I started, and I reached out to the group, and people gave me not only encouragement, but also suggestions, and suggestions on how to contribute and suggestions on what the boundaries of that are. Like, if you feel strongly that there is an idea that you don't have to wait for the meeting. Open up an issue, begin the conversation between meetings, and add it to the agenda for the next meeting. If it becomes a topic of conversation that people agree, we should move forward. But basically, I guess from my limited experience in open source and being the person that you're talking about, the person who's new to open source and is looking to maximize my contributions, just reach out to the group. If you find that the answers that you're getting are useful and succinct, maybe we can make a bulleted list of just things to keep in mind. You're empowered to open up issues, to contribute as to the things that you see in the meeting minutes. If you see that there are openings for things to follow up on, you know, there are opportunities kind of lying around. Just put in the extra effort to identify those and ticket them and open them up for discussion to validate the value that those ideas would bring, and don't hesitate to put yourself out there and just try to contribute to whatever your strengths are. So I'm not sure if there's one way to communicate that. You know, if adding a bulleted list of like one of those encouragement posters, you know, to README.
Yeah.
But if you feel that it would, open up a pull request. Let's talk about your encouragement poster for our README or your bulleted list of things to keep in mind as a contributor. And let's discuss it and let's build it into something.
Yeah, sure.
So harp on that a bit. This is something because even internally at our company, like we're looking at like contributions, like we're building a tool set that would analyze contributions. And the way we see contributions doesn't necessarily have to be commits or PRs to a repository. Contributions can manifest in many ways, with just opening an issue, as you mentioned, adding onto the conversation, or even if someone has opened a PR, reviewing that PR, adding your comments and feedback, that in turn is still contributing because you are contributing to, you know, the overall success of that code base or that module. So I guess what we are trying to look at, and I think this might be a grander thing, is that as a community, we need to think of contributions not just in code, but as you personally investing in, or each of us personally investing inside of that repository or that module at any level. That's the way I've been looking at it through building this service that I've been working on. So I think it's one thing we could probably take a look at here, especially in our practice of maintenance.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I really like some of the things that Edward was saying. And I do think if we could get them into the README at the front that sort of says, feel free to do all these things, that would be a good starting point.
There's I don't know if this is the project that you were talking about, Rick, but the all contributors CLI kind of sounds like what you're talking about, where it recognizes not only that people have contributed, but also has like badges for the different kinds of contributions. You know, to make sure that everybody recognizes that not only are your contributions valid, but we have like we have a special badge for that specific kind of contributions. This is a recognized, known way to contribute. You know, yeah, not that you want
to know about that. Thank you for pointing that out, because no, this is actually kind of manifests itself as part of a hack in our company, or a hackathon that we were running. So thank you for that, because I was basically just hitting up the GitHub API directly with GraphQL and grabbing from it and building it together. So no, that's perfect. Thank you.
I'd still love to see what you're coming up with, because it is hard to get a good picture of contribution beyond, like, you know, I've looked at things like, okay, yeah, how many issues have you been involved in versus PRs and stuff, but it's still far from a sort of, there's not enough science behind that, I don't think.
Yeah, it is tricky, because looking at the graph, like the GraphQL API and the data it provides back, it's very like the data's, you can get very granular with it, but if you're trying to actually see the totals of what everyone's doing, you like have to map out the data yourself onto, like, once you reach some of the points back, or whatever routes you've created on your service to get it back, we have to map it down. We're still working on it internally. It's not open source yet, but it is something we're looking at eventually, maybe moving it to open source eventually. But yes, I'd be happy to, once we have that, provide some data or see what we can provide back. But it's been really interesting working on this project, just as a sort of we did like hacked it together in 24 hours, but it's not even, it wasn't complete or whatever, but
yep.
I'd be happy to share with the group once we've got something going.
Sounds good.
Charlie is also was the main guidance. He's the one main going on it. So I kind of worked on it with him and Charlie, with Charlie and I, and another one in our org. So maybe I can coax Charlie one of these days to hop back onto the channel.
Okay, sounds good. So Dula, going back to your initial question, you know, I can now think of two concrete things we could do. One is to get a PR to add in the kind of things that Edward went over, that, like, you know, if you want to contribute, feel free to open an issue to talk about something. You know, if you want it on the agenda, add a tag, and here's the tag. Was it that you wanted help to figure that out, or is it that you think we should document it and you could take a first cut at a PR adding that to the README?
Yeah, that too. And I wasn't specifically talking about the commits or the working on the code. Basically, the difference between the knowledge, which you people have right now, and the newcomers who want to work on this project.
Right. So, yeah. So my thought was, like, if we could get a PR, I don't know if you can volunteer to put that PR in, or at least the first cut.
Yeah, sure.
That would be one thing. The other thing I could think of is we could potentially offer people like a mentor, or like if somebody's new coming in and wants a little bit more help or discussion, we could say, you know, when you first join, we'll team you up with somebody else who's been part of the team a little longer. That's the other thing that kind of comes to mind. Do you think that would be helpful?
Yeah, I mean, we could open a PR about this as well and discuss, because then there would be a lot of other things as well, like availability and people just joining and then leaving after a while.
So like volunteers for the onboarding program?
Sorry?
Abdullah, we'd have to get volunteers for the onboarding program before we could offer the onboarding program?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think opening an issue then, yeah, if you have other ideas as well, opening an issue where we could discuss the, you know, kind of the problem we'd be trying to solve, and then the kind of things we can do to help solve that would be good.
And I think, to your point, Abdullah, the knowledge gap is perception. I haven't sat down with these guys and looked at their code. I can assume that some of them know things that I don't, but I don't see it documented anywhere. Even in commit history, it could all be me commenting on all of the Webpack or updating spelling errors or whatever, you know? Yeah. So I think a lot of the issue that people face when they're first getting into something new is the perception that everybody knows something that they don't. So I would say whatever the new person's strengths are, they should try to see how they can apply those to what they're working on. And if they run into issues, then ask for help. And I know that whether we have an official onboarding process or not, like pair programming or whatever, people will be happy to help.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, any other topics? Okay, if not, then thanks to everybody who's taken the time, and for everybody who continues to help push the work in GitHub, and we'll work through there for the next couple of weeks, and then we'll see you 2 weeks from now. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.